Welcome to another episode of Into the West Comics. My name is Frank. Just kidding, guys. It's a little bit different. We got a little debate going on. It's me and my boys today.
Close enough.
Donovan and Shane. We got a show that came out, or excuse me, two shows that came out kind of near around the same time, and we have to go week by week comparing them, unfortunately. I'm a fan of one. I'm a fan of the other. I'm going to try and stay a little bit biased to this, or a little bit unbiased, rather.
Are you sure about that?
Boys,
perfect.
We got Donovan going over Lord of the Rings. We got Shane going over House of the Dragons. I just need to know the goods and the bads, the cast and the characters, and give me points on the story. If you guys got some good stuff to tell me, I'm going to give you guys points. Otherwise, you already know how this goes. So who's starting first off?
Donovan, I would like you to begin.
Okay. Lord of the Rings it is, boys.
All right. So first of all, Lord of the Rings is not a bad show. There's been a lot of talk about how this has been a crummy show, that the story is off, the characters are all wrong, everything about this show sucks, and it's not it's not House of Dragons. Well, duh, it's not supposed to be House of Dragons. It's a completely different show with different characters and different plot lines. I kind of went over this in a group chat that we had. The differences between the two is the House of Dragons looks more at what happens when a group or a community goes after the same power and who gets that power and who's going to be the most evil to get it. We see that the baddest people are usually the ones who want the power, and the good people are the ones who don't want power. And if they have it, they want to give it freely to people.
It's true.
Lord of the Rings is completely different from that. Lord of the Rings is, hey, we see this guy who wants, again, ultimate power. That's sort of the underlying theme between the both. But he'll do anything in Morgoth. He'll do anything to stop, chaos and catastrophe because he wants order and he wants control. And he makes people his subjects.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate and it's ugly. And the elves are like, no, this is not freedom. We're going to fight you over this. They fight. And the elves think they win, but they have an ace up their sleeve, and that's Sauron.
Yeah.
Sauron is the guy that's still lurking around, making sure that evil still rises and that order and freedom are not something that are plausible for folks. So it's completely different. You got people who want chaos and order, and then meanwhile you have a community who wants control and power.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings reads different because Lord of the Rings has been around since the 20s or 30s.
Oh, geez. Wow.
It's been around. The story has been around for a long time. So if you're watching the show hoping it's going to be like House of Dragons, where the dialogue is a little more modern and the storylines and some of the action and the blood and the tits and all the things that everyone loves about House of Dragons and Game of Thrones is on there, that's you're not going to get that from Tolkien. He's
No, we get
it's
that.
It's a very old, for lack of a better term, a very Old Testament way of looking at fantasy and story. So people gripe about the pacing of it. I will admit the pacing can be a bit drab at times. It is rough.
It's true.
But they complain about the casting. It's like, black elves and interracial characters and couples being in this. Hey, welcome to 2022. Every single show that you watch on TV is going to have a quote unquote woke agenda or whatever.
It's true.
It's not woke. It's
Welcome
just
to
where
the
we're
now.
at today. This is what we like to do. We like to cast people who haven't been cast in things like this before. That's what you're going to get. Now, as far as, Galadriel and her character and the lore, this is another thing that people bring up. This is so bad. I don't know if they watched the original Lord of the Rings movie, but the original Lord of the Rings is almost completely different but they keep everything intact. Like, everything happens within 20 years for the first Lord of the Rings movies, and they somehow condense it into like 2 weeks in the movies. So as far as you wanting your lore that is in the Silmarillion and some of the other notes and poems that J.R.R. Tolkien has had, you're not going to get it. I'm sorry, but I can even make the comparison for Marvel as well. Everyone was like, we're so excited from Civil War. I don't know if you know this, but the comic book is completely different from the movie.
Different.
And every other Marvel piece that you see is completely different from the original writings.
Yes.
You're not going to get that with movies because they have only a certain amount of time to sit down and consume something. People know the psychology of these things. So I think Lord of the Rings is getting a bad rap for no reason other than it's not House of Dragons.
No reason.
I know, but
I wouldn't say. I mean,
Hold on, boys. Hold on,
but
because you got story down. So I'll give you the point for story, and then you're talking characters because I'm not all the way familiar with the lore, and there is stuff that I was learning from this. So I'll give you the half point for the character, but we're talking goods and the bads, and there has been you've been saying a lot of highlights and why it shouldn't be. You're kind of
well, that's a thing. That's what I'm saying, Sonny, or thinking about. I wanted to address some of the bad points before he addresses the bad points. I mean, it's right. And pacing was a big problem that people had with the show as far as Rings of Power.
And I thought the last week was the last episode, and we have another week. We have another episode,
Right.
so there's more to go down.
And I agree with that. And that's the thing about this. I don't hate the show either. I think the show is pretty good. But there are people are saying Galadriel is a little bit one note, and that's kind of what
an
I
elf!
found.
they're all one note.
One note, and that's something that I'm learning, dude. Like I am learning. But no, it's good. It's good to actually.
And I tell you, I love when Donovan made.
No, because he was going hard for a second. No, but go on. No, finish what you were saying.
No. I'm pretty much done. Yeah, people just have to realize this isn't House of Dragons. It's just
not. It's a different show. It's a
show,
different
and they're talking about completely different things.
Yeah.
One is a little more ancient, a little more a callback to how storytelling was done in previous years. This is House of Dragons is a little more modern telling. You're going to get a little more edge, a little more violence, a little more lust and things that kind of ticker the box for us when we watch a good TV show. But Lord of the Rings, again, it's something that's a little more older, and for fans that love that good versus evil, and there's no really gray in the middle, as where House of Dragons, you don't really know who to trust or what to trust.
House of Dragons is very negative. It's you know what I mean? That's the main difference between the two is while Rings of Power has, even though it has some dark characters and the orcs are dark, but when it comes to House of Dragons, they really go
Everybody kind of
dark.
sucks. Yeah, everybody sucks.
They're really evil people.
It does have a different contrast from good versus evil versus everybody just wants power. You know, and it's really unfortunate that these shows are getting compared so much just because they came out at the same time.
Right.
Which is also a really good topic of discussion because every single week we have something to say, and it's fun to go back and forth with you guys about it. House of the Dragons, what you got for me? Story, cast, and goods and bads, dude.
As far as the goods, it is the emotional depth in which every character approaches, these stories, and it all comes from George R.R. Martin's original ideas, and they pretty much stick to the early, ideas of his vision. Alicent Hightower is one of my favorite characters because she is conflicted.
It's pretty brutal.
Just absolutely brutal. Even though she didn't want to be at the beginning.
For sure.
When it comes to the Targaryens, Daemon Targaryen is truly one of the bad butts of the
it's true.
of this of the story. And as far as the way things are written, the dialogue has been fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'll give you that. The dialogue is much better.
Yeah.
But again, we're talking about modern versus a story that doesn't feel as modern because of the time it has.
Yeah, but if we're gonna get really down to the nitty gritty, and we're just going back, I'll steal those. If we're just going back on points of story being better than one or the other, I will be.
You are a House of the Dragon.
I am a House of the Dragon, guys. I'm gonna try and stay a little bit biased to this, or a little bit unbiased rather. But the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, is incredibly visually stunning, and I will give that. And I can't use that as a crutch the whole time of how good this is for that reason. Although I leave a crutch for House of the Dragons because I love blood and violence and action. So I feel like I have both of those kind of crutches where let me just take those apart and recognize both of these shows as amazing shows as what they are. They're for two different people. Or
that is the main point. They really are for two different. They are for two different kinds of people, but you can appreciate both of them for exactly what they are, which I have. I don't see that many problems with Rings of Power. Just on an emotional depth note, everything about it is is very thespian, and I dig that where you don't get that you don't get that so much from
very Shakespearean.
Yeah, it's very Shakespearean. The dialogue and things like that. But
House of the Dragons is like Sopranos.
Yeah, but you
for fantasy.
It really is though.
Let me go get that thing done.
Yeah,
for
I'll
you
get it
there.
done for you. A flying dragon. This freaking dragon will come down, blow a little smoke on you. What are you gonna do about it?
So no, seriously, and then you definitely big up to House of the Dragon. And I'm so glad. I'm so glad that happened.
Trying so hard not to curse.
But you came in for Rings of Power and said what you didn't like. What didn't you like, or what don't you like more versus one or the other?
I'm more of an old soul when it comes to storytelling. I like the classic trope of good versus evil.
Yeah.
I have a harder time with stories that are like, who do I trust? What do I trust? Like, which is the reason why in the original Game of Thrones, I loved Jon Snow.
Yeah.
Nothing got better than Jon Snow because he was the ultimate good against,
He's the Captain
Ramsay
America.
Bolton of, yeah, exactly.
He's the Captain America.
I'm a little more of a traditionalist. I can appreciate a great story that has some gray in between, like who do you trust? But at some point, you got to give me something. And I think that's where I'm kind of at with House of Dragons. Like, is there anybody good? Is there anybody that I'm like?
That's what I did feel that about Alicent Hightower, that she
was.
begins
She
good.
was, though.
That is the point of Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. Like, nobody can stay good forever. Nobody can be a really kind soul forever, will get.
And I believe
you
that.
get stabbed in the back
I believe
quickly.
that in human beings that there is a capability of someone being good forever. Like, I recognize that people make mistakes and they can do bad things, but I don't believe that because you do a bad thing makes you inherently bad.
Right. Yeah.
I believe that you could still remain a good person doing that. Yeah, you're going to make mistakes and that's fine. But, that's the problem that I have. It's just like, I don't know who to like.
And I think the cool part about this is we're not at the finale of either one of them. So we'll be able to, kind of reconvene once we finish the stories of both of them. I know that they're both going to go on for a little while. So I'm excited to see what they've got going.
Listen, Lord of the Rings of Power is the Shawn Michaels of the fantasy genre right now. And I mean this because this is a wrestling reference.
It's cute and it's sexy.
You're right. So Shawn Michaels was not the most popular guy because he made more money than everyone, and he wasn't the big, flashy, violent guys that everybody else was in the locker room.
Okay.
But they hated him because he made more money than they do. And that's how I see Rings of Power. People choose not to like it because of A, Jeff Bezos, and two, the amount of money that's thrown at it because they go, look at the story they're giving us with 80 million an episode. Well, that will look like House of Dragons can do. Like, okay, fine. But like, you can't hate the people that are making all the money. Like, sorry that HBO Max doesn't have any of their crap together and they got rid of Cartoon Network. I'll leave it at that.
So we'll see you guys next time.
I like
the debate is going to come back. No, dude, the debate will come back during the finale. Thanks for joining me, boys. We'll do this again.
Shane,
I love you,
pleasure.
Oh, they shook on it.
Yeah.
I'm over here.
Agree to agree.
I'm still biased, man. House of the Dragons all day. I'm going to try and stay a little bit biased to this, or a little bit unbiased, rather. Thanks, guys. Stop back and see us next week.
Bye. Love you.